Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into, well, a political landscape that feels less like a steady course and more like a constant, unpredictable whirlwind.
That's putting it mildly.
Right. It's a world where you see these moments of profound global solidarity, and then they clash dramatically with really stark domestic showdowns.
Yeah, hovering over it all.
Exactly. Through it all, the ever-present, undeniably larger-than-life figure of Donald Trump casts this long and really complex shadow. We're going to try and navigate this intricate terrain today.
Which is a lot, let's be honest.
It is a lot to take in daily.
It absolutely is, and that's precisely why a deep dive like this feels so critical right now. What's truly fascinating, I think, is observing how these seemingly separate events, from geopolitical alliances happening overseas to domestic legal fights, even personal conduct.
Yeah.
When you gather them all up meticulously and look at them together, they paint this truly multifaceted, sometimes contradictory picture of Trump's influence, his actions, the reactions he provokes.
It's everywhere.
It really is. We're talking everything from international relations, domestic policy, right down to the very institutions that, underpin our democracy, and even his most personal connections. It's all somehow intertwined.
And that's what we want to untangle. Our mission today is to guide you, our listener, through a pretty comprehensive stack of sources, articles, research, our own compiled notes.
They read a lot here.
We do. We'll try to uncover some surprising facts, offer some critical insights to help you understand this complex tapestry of Trump's world. We really want to help you connect the dots on why these stories aren't just, fleeting headlines.
They matter.
They deeply matter for all of us. They influence everything, from our economy to our fundamental rights. You'll hear about his unique, often controversial leadership style, the economic and social policies he champions, his intriguing and sometimes, frankly, disturbing personal conduct and connections.
And the bigger picture implications, right, for the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What does it all mean for the future we're stepping into as a nation and, as global citizens?
And this exhaustive review, it really raises an important kind of overarching question for all of us, I think. What do these contrasting narratives, these patterns of behavior, ultimately reveal about the fundamental choices we as a society are facing right now? Choices about governance, leadership, the very values we want to uphold.
That's the perfect frame. So let's unpack this by starting with what is really a remarkable tale of two worlds playing out on the very same day.
Okay.
We're talking about August 24th, 2025, a date that marks Ukraine's 34th Independence Day.
A huge day for them.
Immense historical weight, yeah. A powerful symbol of their enduring spirit since declaring independence from the Soviet Union back in '91. And President Zelensky, amidst this ongoing brutal war with Russia, he used the occasion to reaffirm Ukraine's unbreakable spirit.
Still fighting,
pushing for peace, even bravely calling for a direct meeting with Vladimir Putin.
which Moscow just dismissed, right?
Pretty predictably, yes. Dismissed out of hand.
But what's truly striking there is just the sheer resolve, the determination. 3.5 years into Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine is not only still fighting, but defiantly honoring its independence. It's incredible national resilience.
It really is.
And on that very significant day, as you mentioned, we saw this incredibly powerful act of global solidarity. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney made an unannounced trip.
Quite courageous, actually.
Very courageous trip to Kiev. Stood shoulder to shoulder with Zelensky right in the symbolic heart of the city, Sophia Square.
Yeah.
But his presence wasn't just symbolic, was it?
Not at all. And that's the key point. It was backed by substantial concrete support, things designed to have an immediate and lasting impact.
Like what specifically?
Well, Carney pledged over $1 billion Canadian in new military aid. That's a significant sum, directly boosting Ukraine's defense capabilities.
$1 billion.
Yeah. And what's more, he didn't rule out deploying Canadian peacekeepers as part of future security arrangements, once hostilities eventually cease, which sends a strong signal of long-term commitment.
That's a big step, potentially.
It is. And perhaps most importantly, he talked about co-production agreements.
Yeah.
He specifically mentioned drones. Now, for a nation like Ukraine currently fighting for its life, that is huge.
Right. It's not just getting aid, it's building their own capacity.
Exactly. Building self-reliance, establishing a robust domestic defense industry. But it was his speech that really, I think, cut through the noise. He delivered this powerful message. Your cause, freedom, democracy, sovereignty is our cause. Your independence will be our victory.
That's strong language.
It wasn't just polite diplomacy. It was a clear, unwavering message of solidarity, not just to Ukraine, but really to the entire world, reinforcing the global community's stake in Ukraine's struggle.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Carney's visit really underscored Canada's steadfast commitment. It skillfully blended, meaningful diplomacy with significant tangible aid and this powerful message of hope and unity. Zelensky's focus, even in the middle of war, stayed firmly on the dream of a future where Ukrainian independence is celebrated not just through resistance, but an actual peace. This unified, pragmatic approach. It stands in stark, almost jarring contrast to what was happening simultaneously back in the U.S.
Jarring is the word, because here's where the stark divergence really emerges. On that exact same day, August 24th, while a Canadian leader is fostering international goodwill, providing tangible support, President Donald Trump was embroiled in a dramatic, very public confrontation with Maryland Governor Wes Moore.
Over Baltimore, right?
Over Baltimore. Trump took to Truth Social, his platform, to describe Baltimore, a major American city, as a crime disaster.
Despite reports showing falling homicide rates.
Despite readily available reports indicating exactly that, falling homicide rates. And then, in a move that drew immediate widespread condemnation, he threatened to withhold federal funding for the vital Francis Scott Key Bridge rebuild.
The one that collapsed? That's awful.
The one that tragically collapsed earlier this year. And he even floated the idea of deploying the National Guard to restore order in Baltimore. This action, it essentially turned a national infrastructure tragedy, a community's grief, into pure political theater.
Weaponizing a crisis.
Absolutely. Weaponizing it for partisan gain.
And Governor Moore's response was, well, it wasn't just sharp, it was deeply principled, grounded in facts.
So hit back hard.
He wasted no time. Blasted Trump's proposals as outdated and, very pointedly, racially charged scare tactics. Moore was quick to highlight that under his leadership, Baltimore's homicide rate had actually fallen by about 20%. Directly contradicting Trump's narrative.
Facts matter.
And crucially, Moore also raised significant constitutional concerns. He asserted that using the National Guard for local crime enforcement is, well, constitutionally dubious at best, and a profound misuse of critical military resources. Resources meant for disaster relief or national security, not local policing.
So the juxtaposition, it's just profound, isn't it? On one hand, you have this image of unified, pragmatic Canadian leadership in Kyiv, delivering real aid, fostering hope, affirming international principles.
Building bridges, literally and figuratively.
Right. And on the other hand, you have U.S. politics descending into saber-rattling media stunts, attempting to weaponize federal funding for political leverage, and openly discussing the potential for executive overreach into local governance. It's a study in contrasts.
It truly is. And this is where we can really analyze the fundamental differences in these leadership philosophies. Carney's approach in Ukraine. It was characterized by meaningful diplomacy, significant aid, a consistent message of hope, unity. His presence was about bolstering a democratic ally, reinforcing international norms, demonstrating tangible support in wartime. Trump's approach, however, involved rhetoric that deliberately turned a domestic tragedy into political theater. It involved attempts to weaponize federal funding using essential infrastructure repair as leverage and raising serious alarms about the potential misuse of executive power, federal resources, for partisan ends.
One builds bridges. The other seems intent on burning them. That sums it up pretty well.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? These starkly differing styles of leadership, they aren't just theoretical concepts. They have tangible, immediate impacts on both international stability and domestic governance.
Absolutely. Carney's approach fosters genuine progress through cooperation, through support, while Trump's risks further division, instability, and frankly, the erosion of trust in our institutions.
This whole contrast forces us to consider, which approach genuinely builds societal resilience, both at home and abroad, and which risks fracturing it, leaving us more vulnerable. It's a powerful lesson in what leadership can be, maybe should be, versus what it sometimes becomes.
The critical distinction. That exploration of contrasting leadership styles, it undeniably impacts stability and governance. But beneath the visible actions, the rhetoric, there are often deeper, less visible currents shaping our political landscape, particularly the powerful interplay of money and influence.
Ah, yes, the oligarchy question.
Exactly. Which brings us to our next critical dive. examining how former President Trump's world is intertwined with what many, like Senator Bernie Sanders, call the oligarchy, and how figures like Sanders are powerfully critiquing those very connections.
Indeed. Senator Bernie Sanders recently held a truly fiery rally in Iowa, and he didn't pull any punches.
He rarely does.
No. His speech delivered a direct, scathing challenge to Donald Trump, portraying him as a central figure within this oligarchy that Sanders believes is actively undermining American democracy. His message, delivered with that characteristic passion, clearly resonated with the crowd, cutting through the usual political noise.
You bet it did. Bernie went straight for Trump, delivered a line that apparently had the crowd roaring. If you can't take criticism, if you're that weak, get the hell out of politics.
Classic Bernie. Direct.
No sugarcoating there. And what's particularly striking about Sanders' strategy is he's deliberately taking this message into red states, purple states, not just his traditional strongholds.
And people are showing it.
In droves, apparently, because his fundamental argument isn't about the usual red versus blue divide. It's about something more profound, a top versus bottom struggle. Working people versus billionaires and the ultra-wealthy who he argues are actively stacking the deck against the majority.
And this is precisely where Sanders really hones in on that top versus bottom divide. He argues that the issues affecting people's daily lives, the most economic security, healthcare, education, are often the very ones the mainstream media and many politicians tend to avoid.
Why?
Because discussing them too openly, he argues, would threaten the existing power structures of the oligarchy. And to illustrate this stark reality, he brought out a truly shocking statistic.
Which one?
Elon Musk. Just one individual owns more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households combined.
52%. That's staggering.
It is. And this kind of inequality, compounded by the fact that CEOs now, on average, make 350 times their workers' wages, it vividly brings into relief the decline of the American dream for millions. It's becoming an increasingly exclusive club.
And the audience felt it, didn't they? He asked them directly if they felt life was better or worse than 50 years ago.
And almost the entire room, by a show of hand, said worse. People shared deeply personal stories. Their kids never being able to afford a home, the crushing weight of student debt, tanking credit scores, folks working multiple jobs just to make rent, put food on the table.
This isn't abstract economics.
Not at all. It's the lived, often painful experience of millions struggling with housing insecurity, overwhelming debt, and this persistent feeling that economic progress is just bypassed them, left them behind.
Sanders then connects this directly to Trump.
Right. He portrays Trump not just as wealthy, but as a dictator for the oligarchs, effectively a front man for the billionaire class. He argued that Trump deliberately uses fear tactics, attacking universities, scapegoating immigrants, undermining labor unions, as a way to consolidate power and divert attention from the real economic inequalities.
And the tax bill came up.
Oh, yes. Sanders specifically highlighted Trump's big, beautiful tax bill, which he characterized as nothing less than a massive transfer of wealth upward. This legislation, he argued, resulted in trillions in tax cuts, mostly for the wealthy and large corporations.
While doing what to social programs?
Simultaneously setting the stage for slashing crucial social safety nets. Healthcare, nutrition assistance for working families, presenting a clear moral and economic choice.
And he put a human face on it, too.
He did. He pointed out that in Iowa alone, where he was speaking, 95,000 people stood to lose their health care due to these proposed cuts. A grim statistic he chillingly called a death sentence for the poor. Bernie also powerfully emphasized the argument for rebuilding strong labor unions, noting a historical truth. When unions are strong, when workers have collective bargaining power, wages rise for everyone, not just union members. It creates a more equitable economy.
And the future. AI and robotics.
He concluded with a stark warning that without a fundamental commitment to fairness, economic justice, the coming revolution in AI and robotics would only serve to widen the wealth gap even further, create an even more divided society.
This unvarnished critique from Sanders, it delivers a stark insight, doesn't it? When economic policy is crafted mainly by and for the ultra-wealthy, it doesn't just widen the wealth gap, it fundamentally reconfigures society. It actively dismantles pathways to upward mobility for the majority.
He challenges us to see how political power, leveraged through things like tax bills, can become a tool for massive wealth transfer, essentially transforming the American dream into an increasingly exclusive club. This isn't just about statistics. It's about recognizing how systemic policies directly shape your financial security, the opportunities available to your family, the overall fairness of the economic system you operate within.
And speaking of power plays and the acquisition of critical data, let's talk about Elon Musk's pre-midterm 2024 lottery, a scheme that, according to sources, directly involved Trump's political allies.
Ah, the $1 million giveaway.
Exactly. Musk publicly offered to give away $1 million daily to people who signed a petition. Sounds generous, right? Maybe even benevolent.
It certainly did on the surface, but now there's a class action lawsuit claiming this was actually an alleged fraud.
Not a real lottery.
Not a genuine random lottery, the suit claims, but rather a sophisticated data grab specifically designed for voter targeting.
Okay, that's a serious allegation.
It is. And what's particularly surprising and highly notable in the legal world is that federal judge Robert Pittman, presiding in a notoriously conservative Texas court, decided to let the lawsuit proceed.
Why is that so notable?
Well, judges in the Fifth Circuit aren't typically known for challenging individuals closely aligned with Trump or his political agenda. So this decision signals that the court sees enough merit in the allegations to allow for future discovery, maybe even a trial.
And it gets more intriguing, doesn't it, with the Pennsylvania investigation?
Right. When investigators in Pennsylvania started looking into this operation, Musk's own team apparently provided testimony under oath that directly contradicted the idea of a random lottery.
What did they say?
They testified that prizes were, in fact, handpicked, not randomly selected, exposing critical inconsistencies in their public claims.
Okay, so the irony here is pretty rich. Trump, who constantly rails against voter fraud, election integrity, had an ally allegedly running what prosecutors in Pennsylvania have characterized as an illegal lottery, specifically to collect voter data. It's almost the classic magician's trick, isn't it?
How so?
Drawing everyone's attention to one perceived threat, like mail-in ballots or whatever, while a different, less visible manipulation is potentially happening right under our noses.
Indeed, the magician's trick analogy is apt. And what's crucial for our listeners to understand is the immense value of this kind of data. Voter data, in modern politics, it's often called the new oil.
Why is it so valuable?
It's incredibly valuable for micro-targeting specific voter demographics, enabling sophisticated voter suppression tactics, and crucially, for swaying swing voters with highly tailored messages. If Musk's PAC obtained this data under false pretenses, it's not just ethically shady, it could be profoundly illegal.
So the potential damages could be huge.
They could encompass the actual market value of that data, which, given its political utility, could easily amount to millions of dollars. It's not just about hurt feelings.
So what does this mean for Trump's long game, for the integrity of future elections? Well, this lawsuit serves as a significant and potentially very expensive roadblock to his flashy tactics and alleged voter suppression efforts.
It could set a powerful legal precedent.
Exactly. Sending a clear, unequivocal message that elections and the critical data driving them were fundamentally not for sale to the highest bidder or through deceptive means. It highlights this essential battle for transparency and fairness right at the heart of the democratic process.
Precisely. It forces us all to consider the integrity of how political campaigns acquire and use voter information, especially when it involves wealthy individuals trying to influence elections through opaque or potentially illegal means. This isn't just about one lottery. It's about safeguarding the foundational principle of a free and fair election system from covert manipulation.
Now let's talk about another fascinating intersection of Trump and the legal world, this alleged quid pro quo with some of the nation's biggest law firms.
The pro bono deals.
We're talking about a significant, nearly billion-dollar deal here. According to our sources, 9 major law firms, under what was described as intense political pressure from the previous administration, committed approximately $1 billion in pro bono legal services.
$1 billion in free legal work.
Directly to Trump and his political agenda.
And the revelation that Boris Epshteyn, often described as Trump's self-proclaimed fixer, a close confidant, was the one brokering these deals behind the scenes, is particularly telling.
Why Epshteyn?
It paints a clear picture of a direct, calculated pipeline between significant political pressure coming from the White House and the often, staid legal establishment. That this wasn't some casual request. Sources suggest it was an orchestrated campaign to secure legal firepower for the administration's specific objectives.
And some of these firms, according to our sources, really cashed in afterwards, didn't they?
Well, there are examples cited like Kirkland & Ellis and Skadden Arps, who ended up working directly with Trump's Commerce Department, which was notably led by Howard Letnick at the time.
Doing what?
These firms were reportedly deeply involved in the intricate process of drafting and structuring tariffs, a key economic weapon in Trump's policy arsenal.
And tariffs, just to be clear, they aren't just administrative fees.
Not at all. They're powerful economic weapons. They function by imposing taxes on imported goods. While the intent might be to protect domestic industries, they inevitably raise costs for businesses relying on those imports and ultimately for consumers buying those products.
So it hits your wallet.
It impacts millions of Americans through higher prices, potentially reduced availability. So these firms weren't just giving minor legal advice. They were directly shaping and implementing significant economic policy with real-world consequences on your cost of living, the global trade landscape.
But not all firms fell in line. That's important too.
It is. There were notable counterexamples, like Milbank, which actively challenged the administration's immigration policies, even sued over tariffs. And Paul Weiss, notably, took on a high-profile case suing the Proud Boys.
So a real struggle within the profession.
A clash of conscience, it seems. Now, Trump's motivations for this whole push to get all this pro bono support are interesting too. Sources indicate he was furious that many prominent firms refused to represent him in his various legal battles, fraud allegations, election interference claims.
So this was retaliation.
In a move that appeared retaliatory, yes. He subsequently attacked diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, DEI initiatives, and publicly lambasted the whole concept of pro bono work more broadly.
Which raises a critical point about the moral backbone of the law itself, right?
Absolutely. Pro bono work, providing free legal services for immigrants, defending voting rights, representing the wrongfully convicted, aiding vulnerable populations, it's not just charity. It is fundamental to a lawyer's oath, a core ethical principle of the profession.
And it's training for young lawyers, too.
Crucial training. It immerses them in the fight against injustice, allows them to develop vital legal skills while serving the public good. When Trump attacks pro bono, he isn't just attacking a practice. Sources argue he's attacking a core ethical principle and undermining the development of future lawyers committed to fighting for justice for all.
So what does this mean for you, the listener? These backroom deals, these intense legal battles, they directly affect economic policy through things like tariffs that impact your wallet. And they also challenge the very integrity and independence of the legal profession itself.
It's about who holds power, who bows to that power, and how that dynamic ripples through your daily life, impacting everything from consumer prices to the availability of legal avenues to protect your fundamental rights. It underscores that the legal system isn't immune to political pressure. Its integrity needs constant defending.
Okay, we're now moving into some much darker and frankly more disturbing territory, folks, as we unveil these hidden legacies connecting figures like Ivana Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and a broader pattern of, well, authoritarian overreach.
Yeah, this is uncomfortable stuff.
It is. But for a true deep dive, it's absolutely crucial to shine a light on these shadows, understand their implications.
This section, as you said, reveals deeply disturbing connections, patterns that many might prefer to ignore. Let's begin with Ivana Trump and her truly strange, yet deeply intertwined friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell.
How close were they?
Sources describe them as best of friends, sharing household staff, frequently moving in the same exclusive high society circles, a connection that inevitably drew the Trump family deeper into Epstein's shadowy world. This wasn't casual. It was a close association with profound and troubling implications.
And here's where it gets chilling. Sickening, really. One Epstein victim, Maria Farmer, provided a harrowing account. She explicitly recalled Ivana being in the car with Maxwell during instances when Maxwell was reportedly scouting young girls.
In the car, while scouting.
That's the testimony. Imagine that scenario, Ivana Trump sitting there, seemingly oblivious or, worse, complicit, as if it were just another day out. And adding another layer of darkness, Epstein himself allegedly made this truly macabre joke during Donald and Ivana's very public divorce.
That was a joke.
Quipping that Donald got Donald and Ivana got Ghislaine. Powerfully highlighting how deeply intertwined these relationships these people truly were.
Wow. And Ivana's death itself was questioned, wasn't it?
Her mysterious death in 2022, officially attributed to a fall, raised significant questions among her close friends. They expressed surprise, given what they knew of her health, her active lifestyle. Even more peculiar was her burial.
on the golf course.
In a seemingly neglected plot behind Trump's Bedminster golf course. This choice has been widely scrutinized, not least because burying someone on a golf course can potentially offer significant tax breaks, an act described by some as cold, even ghoulish, given the circumstances.
And connecting the dots further, Ivana's own divorce testimony from the early 90s.
Right. It described a violent incident with Donald Trump. She even used the word rape, though she later softened that language. The implication here is critical. Ghislaine Maxwell, being her best friend, would almost certainly have been privy to these deeply personal, disturbing stories.
Which makes Maxwell's later praise of Trump from prison.
Exactly. Calling him always liked, kind, admiring his extraordinary achievement, it appears as a highly strategic, almost desperate act of flattery. Potentially angling for a pardon, some form of protection, despite her deep historical knowledge of Ivana's experiences.
The strategic flattery angle is chilling.
And it really hammers home the systemic interconnectedness. Ivana, Donald, Ivanka, Robert, and Melania Trump were all, according to our sources, listed in Epstein's infamous Black Book.
The whole family.
These weren't just passing acquaintances. It was a deeply entwined, multi-layered network, placing the Trump family firmly within Epstein's orbit, raising more questions about what exactly they knew and when.
Moving to another unsettling revelation. What many describe as the transparent cover-up surrounding Trump, Epstein, and even connections to Putin.
The Epstein files dump.
Exactly. Republicans initiated what was widely characterized as a Friday news dump, 33,000 pages of Epstein files. But on closer inspection, it was quickly revealed that a staggering 97–98% of these documents were merely recycled public records.
Nothing new.
Information already widely available. Not the truly unredacted, subpoenaed material people anticipated. Congressman Robert Garcia, among others, called the whole exercise a joke and a continuation of the cover-up, pointing out none of the genuinely sensitive or previously unseen material was actually released.
It's almost like they thought people wouldn't notice the sleight of hand.
Compounding this, they also prominently released transcripts and audio of Ghislaine Maxwell herself, who, from prison, denied Trump's involvement in Epstein's crimes, vehemently denied all wrongdoing.
Even blaming the victims.
Even blaming victims and bizarrely portraying Epstein as some kind of youth culture researcher, and who was the one nervously defending Trump, using Maxwell's highly suspect word.
Let me guess. Jim Jordan.
None other than Jim Jordan. And this is the same Jim Jordan, let's remember, who himself faced significant accusations of covering up abuse during his time at Ohio State University. The layers of hypocrisy here are quite striking. Deeply concerning.
And Trump's affinity for Putin fits into this how?
What's particularly concerning in this tangled web is Trump's well-documented public affinity for Vladimir Putin, especially when you juxtapose it with the Epstein cover-up. Sources highlight instances like Trump holding a framed photo of Putin in the Oval Office, openly calling it beautiful, noting Putin's respect.
Admiration for an authoritarian.
Alongside the handling of the Epstein files, it raises serious questions about transparency, accountability. Furthermore, there are specific allegations that Trump actively protected Maxwell, reportedly moving her to a minimum security prison, even punishing another inmate who dared to criticize her perceived special treatment. These actions suggest a pattern of favoritism, potential obstruction, that just deepens the mystery around the true extent of these connections.
Now let's pivot to another chilling pattern of fear and authoritarian control that's been documented. The aggressive, often brutal tactics of ICE and Border Patrol across various U.S. communities.
Yeah, this isn't just about immigration policy itself.
No, important as that is, this is about the erosion of fundamental civil rights, the weaponization of law enforcement against vulnerable populations, often with devastating human consequences.
The sources cite disturbing real-world examples. A man eating crabs in D.C., violently arrested, head slammed into the pavement. In Garden Grove, California, a local school went into terrifying lockdown after masked agents mistakenly surrounded a father, traumatizing young kids who witnessed it.
Horrible for those children.
Another instance, a father dragged off near a school, forcing children, crossing guards, to navigate around this deeply distressing event. These actions, carried out in plain sight, often without clear justification, inflict immense emotional, psychological tolls on children, entire communities, fostering a pervasive climate of fear.
And these authoritarian displays, they go beyond isolated incidents.
Far beyond. Agents have been widely documented shoving cameras away, directly threatening citizen journalists trying to document their activities, engaging in clear racial profiling at gas stations in Texas.
And threatening relatives.
One barbershop owner bravely demanded a warrant, a fundamental constitutional right, only to be threatened with legal action against his parents. A truly coercive tactic. And the case of Abrago Garcia is particularly egregious. Unlawful deportation, fabricated charges, a documented attempt at blackmail.
Blackmail how?
Pressured to plead guilty under the threat of being sent to Uganda, a country he had absolutely no connection to. These aren't isolated errors. They reflect a disturbing pattern of systemic abuse and intimidation.
So, connecting this to the bigger picture, this isn't solely about immigration enforcement, though it clearly impacts immigrant communities profoundly.
Right. It's about a broader, more alarming trend. The erosion of basic rights, due process, the weaponization of law enforcement to instill fear, and a very concerning question about whether America is sliding into something much darker in terms of its civil liberties. It highlights the absolute critical importance of transparency, accountability, constitutional adherence from all government agencies, especially those wielding such significant power.
And finally, in this section, let's confront what our sources describe as a dystopian threat to women's rights and children's safety. Warning of a chilling trajectory.
This is heavy stuff.
It is. Our sources paint a deeply concerning picture of the Meiji takeover of the Republican Party, actively pushing an authoritarian vision where women's rights aren't just challenged, but are being systematically erased, drawing frightening comparisons to Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale.
It's a dire and urgent warning. We're seeing Christian nationalist leaders openly discussing, advocating for the repeal of the 19th Amendment.
Repealing women's right to vote. Seriously.
That's the discussion, guaranteed for over a century. Their proposals include advocating for household voting, where, unsettlingly, men would cast ballots for their entire families, effectively silencing women's individual political voices, their representation.
Who's pushing this?
Pastor Doug Wilson is a particularly prominent, influential voice in this movement. Openly advocates for a patriarchal Christian nation, explicitly argues against women's suffrage, makes demeaning misogynistic comments about women in the military, promoting a profoundly regressive societal model.
And his influence goes beyond rhetoric, tragically.
Far beyond. Wilson has a well-documented, deeply disturbing history of supporting convicted pedophiles within his church, actively encouraging marriages between these individuals and unsuspecting women, thereby enabling reoffending with truly horrific consequences for victims and the community.
And this pattern of protecting predators, it's not just isolated.
Sources point to the Republican Party itself, as seen in Utah, being accused of actively providing a legal shield for predators. In one alarming instance, a Utah GOP state Senate president allegedly rewrote rape laws specifically to reduce charges for a relative accused of assaulting a 13-year-old girl, a systemic failure to protect the most vulnerable.
And Trump's personal role in this broader narrative.
Deeply problematic. His actions often stand in stark contrast to any family values image some try to project. He was famously found liable for sexual assault, has publicly bragged about non-consensual grabbing of women, and privately, sources indicate he sees himself as the victim in the Epstein scandal, rather than acknowledging any complicity or moral failing.
The hypocrisy is stunning.
The profound hypocrisy of the Magier world's loud cries about pedos in Hollywood is glaringly highlighted when simultaneously GOP officials, donors, are busted for sex crimes against children. And Trump himself, according to sources, actively shut down efforts to fully expose Epstein's extensive political connections.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? This section underscores a chilling reality. The attacks on Roe v. Wade were not isolated. They were merely the beginning of a broader, systematic effort to dismantle equality, exert profound control over women and children.
This isn't about minor policy tweaks.
No. It directly affects fundamental freedoms, bodily autonomy, the very structure of gender equality in America. It challenges us to understand these aren't just fringe beliefs, but deeply ingrained ideologies, actively shaping legislation, judicial appointments, societal norms, with potentially devastating consequences for everyone.
A sobering perspective.
Now, let's turn our attention to the direct attacks on institutions meant to be pillars of our society. Institutions designed to uphold justice, foster independent thought, ensure economic stability. We'll examine the resistance these pressures are facing, starting with Trump's attempted extortion of UCLA and the broader battle for higher education's future.
This is critical. Higher education is often seen as a bastion of independent thought. And Trump has indeed been on a concerted crusade against what he calls elite universities. The concerning trend, according to sources, is how many institutions, even those with massive endowments like Harvard, Columbia, Penn, have surprisingly caved to his demands.
Caved how?
Harvard, for instance, reportedly paid $500 million, agreed to significant changes including gutting certain diversity programs. Columbia apparently paid $200 million, committed to reworking its curriculum. These capitulations set an incredibly dangerous precedent, showing even institutions seen as unshakable could be pressured financially and ideologically into altering their core mission.
And this brings us to UCLA.
Exactly. Trump arbitrarily demanded a staggering $1 billion from UCLA, a figure for which sources emphasize there was no clear math, no rationale, no legal precedent. California Governor Gavin Newsom didn't mince words, publicly, fiercely called it what it was: blatant extortion.
Not a negotiation.
An attempt to strong-arm a public institution for political gain, potentially using federal power as a lever.
But Newsom stood firm.
His unwavering stand is paramount, not just for California, but for the whole concept of academic freedom. He issued a fiery declaration: "We are not for sale, not now, not ever." Made it unequivocally clear California would not sell our soul to Donald Trump, signaling a principled refusal to compromise the independence, the integrity of his public university system.
It wasn't just about the money then.
No, it was a profound defense of independent thought, critical inquiry, the university's fundamental role. Now, Trump's specific allegations against UCLA included discrimination against Jewish students, illegal race-based admissions despite California banning affirmative action since '96, and mishandling transgender student rights. These accusations, though serious, were seen by many as politically motivated, creating a pretense for his demands.
But Newsom and others pushed back on that narrative.
They did. Newsom and the California Legislative Jewish Caucus fired back, asserting Trump was weaponizing the Department of Justice not to uphold justice, but to punish California, silence independent thought, serve his broader political agenda, while conspicuously ignoring legitimate concerns of Palestinian students amidst these allegations.
And this connects to Project 2025.
Directly aligns to the shadow of Project 2025, that comprehensive conservative initiative outlining detailed plans for a potential future administration. When sources say they aim to dismantle diversity, they mean concrete plans: eliminating DEI initiatives, potentially ending affirmative action, reconsidering federal funding for programs promoting representation.
And gutting the Department of Education.
Not just budget cuts. It's about centralizing curriculum control, shifting power away from academic institutions, local communities, effectively reshaping them into, as critics warn, propaganda mills rather than independent centers of critical thought and free inquiry.
Then UCLA is a big target.
As the university receiving the most applications in the entire U.S., it represents a crown jewel. If Trump were to succeed in breaking or profoundly reshaping UCLA through these tactics, it would send an incredibly chilling, dangerous message to all other institutions, signaling even the most prestigious are vulnerable to political coercion.
So Newsom's resistance is bigger than just UCLA.
It's a vital defense of independent thought, the bedrock of free inquiry, ultimately a defense of democracy itself, proving that universities never had to fold in the first place when confronted with such pressure.
Let's move on to another crucial institution under direct attack: Trump's Fed power play and the intense battle surrounding Dr. Lisa Cook.
The Federal Reserve. Its independence is critical.
Absolutely non-negotiable for stable monetary policy. Think about it. If a president could just mandate lower interest rates to juice the economy before an election, it would inevitably lead to unchecked inflation, destabilizing your savings, your purchasing power long term.
The Fed's role is to make data-driven decisions.
On interest rates, money supply, meticulously shielded from short-term political pressures, precisely to safeguard the long-term health of your wallet, the national economy, acting distinctly independently from Congress's fiscal policy of taxes and spending.
Trump, however, has a well-documented obsession with interest rates, driven by a desire to see them slashed low enough to juice the economy, inflate the stock market for his immediate political gain, regardless of long-term consequences.
And his target is Dr. Lisa Cook.
His specific target in this power play is Dr. Lisa Cook, made history as the first black woman appointed to the Fed board. Her term remarkably lasts until 2038. And crucially, she has voted against cutting rates at the pace Trump desires.
So she's an obstacle.
A significant long-term obstacle to his desired monetary policy, a position he clearly views as unacceptable.
This is where Ed Martin comes in, described as Trump's political hitman.
According to sources, yes. Martin played a pivotal role orchestrating a phony mortgage fraud investigation against Dr. Cook. He apparently did this by leveraging an ally he had placed inside Fannie Mae Freddie Mac.
creating a pretext.
creating a seemingly legitimate yet entirely fabricated basis for a smear campaign. He then publicly launched this campaign, sending a highly publicized letter to Fed Chair Jerome Powell, even trolling him with Trump's infamous insult, "Too late, Powell," all in an obvious attempt to pressure Dr. Cook into resigning.
But Dr. Cook has strong credentials.
Impeccable qualifications. PhD in economics from UC Berkeley, Marshall Scholar, multiple other advanced degrees, former chief economist in the Obama administration. Her credentials are, frankly, beyond reproach, and her public defiance has been inspiring.
What did she say?
"I'm not going to be bullied out of my position. I take my financial conduct seriously, and I welcome the challenge," demonstrating immense personal fortitude, a deep commitment to the Fed's independence, refusing to capitulate to politically motivated attacks.
So what are the stakes for you, the listener, in this battle for Fed independence? Politicizing the Federal Reserve, forcing its hand on interest rates, directly impacts your mortgage rates, your credit card bills, your retirement savings, even your job security.
It means monetary policy dictated not by sound economic data or long-term stability, but by short-term re-election strategy at your personal expense. The integrity of the Fed is a direct safeguard for your financial well-being, protecting the economy from manipulation for immediate political gain.
A crucial firewall.
Indeed. And the repercussions of such a politicized Fed would be felt across every aspect of the economy. We'll certainly be watching for Jerome Powell's upcoming speech in Jackson Hole, that annual gathering of central bankers, historically significant for monetary policy. Given Trump's intense focus, it's almost guaranteed to draw his immediate strong reaction. This battle is truly about the independence of institutions designed to protect the economy from political manipulation, a foundational principle.
We've covered a vast amount of ground today. Now it's time to delve into the man himself. Donald Trump, the myth he projects, and the concerning signs of decay perhaps we're seeing in his personal and political landscape. Let's start with public perception, some recent physical observations.
This section truly reveals a complex, evolving picture. Sources indicate a significant shift in public sentiment. Reports that Trump is currently being booed everywhere he goes, not just isolated incidents, but described as full stadium, Game of Thrones style shame, shame, shame chants at various public appearances.
That's quite a shift.
This widespread public disapproval is a notable, consistent pattern. Contrasts sharply with his rallies, suggests a distinct public fatigue or rejection beyond his core base.
And physically, there have been observations reported.
A number of significant, often concerning observations from various sources. Descriptions of Trump dragging one leg, noticeable new bruises or discoloration on his hand, swollen ankles, anecdotal reports of an inability to consistently walk in a straight line.
And the media coverage of this.
What's particularly striking is the noticeable lack of mainstream media scrutiny on these specific physical details, especially compared to how such observations might be relentlessly scrutinized if they pertain to any other prominent public figure, any other candidate. This disparity raises questions about a double standard in how his physical state is being presented or ignored.
And mentally, reports of delusion.
Sources highlight a profound, growing sense of delusion, an unchecked ego. Trump reportedly engaging in frequent rage posting on his platform, claiming real approval ratings in the 60s and 70s. Figures widely disconnected from any credible polling data. Indicates a deep, potentially troubling disconnect from reality.
And strange fixations.
Coupled with what some describe as bizarre fixations, like an extended, seemingly out-of-the-blue rant defending former baseball player Roger Clemens against steroid allegations from way back in 2003, showcasing an odd obsession with seemingly irrelevant or long-resolved topics, rather than focusing on pressing current events.
Moving on to his more overt authoritarian leanings, some undeniable hypocrisy. His well-documented rants about the fake news media, specifically targeting major networks like ABC, NBC, and his repeated threats to revoke their FCC licenses.
These aren't just rhetorical flourishes.
No, they are clearly branded by critics as straight-up authoritarianism, not the statements of a leader committed to a free press.
And this rhetoric is then chillingly juxtaposed with the very real taxpayer-funded concentration camps, that term being used by critics being constructed for migrants, a stark, disturbing contrast to his attacks on journalists who might report on such facilities.
And the National Guard deployments.
We continue to see political theater in the deployment of the National Guard, as was evident in D.C. for a vaguely defined mission of keeping D.C. safe and beautiful. Many observers view these deployments as primarily for show, a display of force without a clear operational objective. more for political optics than genuine public service.
And the hypocrisy regarding military service.
It doesn't stop there. Trump, a known draft dodger from Vietnam, has consistently attacked Governor Wes Moore, a highly decorated veteran. Moore, however, delivered a powerful retort, reminding Trump he himself had called U.S. troops suckers and losers, openly mocked the late Senator John McCain's service as a POW. This exchange highlights a fundamental, stark difference in their respect for military service.
Finally, his international embarrassments, those concerning ties to Russia, continue to raise alarm bells.
Trump has been frequently observed, as sources describe, fangirling over Vladimir Putin. Incidents like holding up a framed photo of Putin in the Oval Office, calling it beautiful, respectful, openly bragging about inviting Putin to the World Cup.
And the Alaska meeting.
Analysis of a lip-read meeting between Trump and Putin in Alaska reportedly showed Trump appearing to be begging for approval, a posture deeply unsettling for an American president on the global stage.
And here's the truly dangerous, frankly shocking part. Russia recently openly bombed an American-owned factory in Ukraine, an act of overt aggression against U.S. interests.
And Russia's response?
Brazen, unapologetic, stating, yep, we did it, deal with it. Trump's response to this direct provocation.
Silence.
Radio silence. Not a word of condemnation. Not a statement defending American interests. His allies, like Senator J.D. Vance, even downplayed it as simply, that's war, highlighting a dangerous weakness, a disturbing lack of resolve in defending American interests and citizens globally. This silence facing such aggression speaks volumes about a potential willingness to overlook or excuse actions by an adversary.
This section collectively underscores how Trump's personal character, his observable physical state, his consistent political behaviors intertwine to collectively shape his profound impact on both domestic democracy and international relations. It serves as a crucial reminder not to normalize these patterns, given their potentially far-reaching, dangerous implications for the country's stability and standing in the world. It compels us to consider how these elements interact to define his leadership and the challenges he poses to establish norms and institutions.
Okay, we've taken a truly comprehensive deep dive today, exploring so many intricate facets of Donald Trump's enduring influence, from his starkly contrasting leadership style global stage versus domestic arena.
Big difference there.
Huge difference. To his economic and social policies, his personal connections, those troubling legal entanglements, and finally, his pronounced authoritarian tendencies alongside the significant, often courageous, resistance he faces. It's been dense, but essential. Undoubtedly, a lot to process.
Indeed. What's become profoundly clear throughout this deep dive is that these aren't disparate stories operating in isolation. They are all, without exception, crucial threads in a larger, consistent narrative, revealing a discernible pattern of behavior with significant, often alarming implications for how we perceive power, demand accountability, and envision the future of our institutions. Each point illuminates a piece of this complex tapestry.
So as we wrap up today's extensive deep dive, here's a thought for you, our listener, to ponder long after our conversation ends. When we look at the constant flux, the intense pressures, the undeniable controversy swirling around former President Trump, are we witnessing a leader simply adapting to unprecedented times, navigating challenges with unconventional methods? Or are we observing a deeply entrenched system under continuous, deliberate, and perhaps unprecedented strain? And what does that ultimately reveal, not just about one individual, but about the fundamental strength and inherent resilience of our democratic institutions, the very fabric of our society?
That's the core question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It challenges us all to look beyond the immediate headlines, truly understand the foundational shifts that might be occurring beneath the surface, shaping the future we will all inhabit.
Absolutely. We encourage you to continue asking those tough questions, staying rigorously informed, engaging deeply with the layers beneath the surface of daily news. Your active participation in understanding these complexities, in discerning patterns, and holding leaders accountable is more important now than perhaps ever before. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time.